if you look at what happened last year, you had a very sort of uncertain global landscape with conflicts, rising tensions, and obviously a busy electoral calendar. But very few people appreciate that the 5 best performing markets were all frontier markets. So you had countries like Argentina, Kenya, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Tanzania. They all outperformed the NASDAQ. They are the sort of unexpected winners of a divided world. And I think going forward, a lot of these other markets in this category will do well. They are sort of backed by recent reforms. Growth is now recovering from a recent recession. So I'm really focused actually on 2 markets in particular, Nigeria and Bangladesh. Both sort of going through this interesting reform process, both trading at historically low valuations.
Steve, got to ask you, right? I mean, liquidity is one thing, and there was the time talking about Vietnam when it first started. I mean, they had like a dozen stocks listed. That's about it, and that's a liquidity concern. Obviously, things have moved on in the 20 years since, right? But with Nigeria, with Pakistan, etc., with the currency issue, right? Strong dollar, right? Putting pressure on these guys. Is the simple answer just, well, look, just hedge your currency, or does it get more complicated than that?
It's a little more complicated. We found that hedging is quite expensive, and it's not really a practical tool we can use. But what I will say is that what you see is a lot of the corporates have been able to adapt over time. I think, foreign investors can come and go, as you alluded to earlier, but the corporations themselves, they're there, and they learn to adapt. They raise prices. They find ways to deliver earnings. And I think one way to sort of illustrate that is if you look at the dollar earnings growth of some of these markets since 2011, Pakistan has generated stronger dollar earnings growth than the S&P. Argentina has the same. Turkey is another sort of volatile market, but the corporates have delivered dollar earnings growth faster than India since 2011. So I think that the corporates are able to adapt, and you can find also corporates that have a business that's levered to a depreciating currency. Their margins are actually improving.
All right, Mans?
Yeah, absolutely. So you highlighted Nigeria and Bangladesh as just 2 of these next-gen emerging markets that you think have, some fundamental good things going for them, such as reform. And, when you look at these frontier markets or next-gen emerging markets, there are so many great things going for them. Young demographics, you've got, rising incomes, you've got, transfer to more formal retail away from mom and pop stores, you've got better banking penetration. Which of these sectors on a sort of a macro level are you looking at in particular from an investment strategy?
Yeah, I think right now we're really focused on the consumer stories in these markets. So I'll give you a few examples. So while the world is sort of really focused on global AI capex, there's some of these themes in these countries that are underpinned by secular forces, as you alluded to. So one is this sort of idea of the shift from informal retail to more formal retail. So think, moving from mom and pop stores to more formal retail. In Vietnam, the mini market grocery stores over the past 5 years have grown on average 40% a year. The modern pharmacies have grown on average 60% a year. To give you another example, in Indonesia, the athleisure wear sportswear market has averaged about 20% a year. It's doubled since COVID. And then, as you said, in Egypt and in Nigeria, you're seeing mobile money grow at about 30% a year. So these are all sort of underpinned by these structural long-term forces, and they are sort of uncorrelated to geopolitics or maybe other sort of AI-related stories. And so the consumer is one that we're really focused on at the moment.
So maybe not so correlated to geopolitics, but what about local politics? Because this has quite often been the bane or the thorn in the side, if you like, of a lot of these frontier markets. Is this an issue in any of those particular markets for this year?
I'd say the politics can be noisy at times, but I do think that the interesting thing is that the corporates historically are resilient. They have been through many cycles. I think one example I could give is Pakistan at the moment. I mean, if you think about it, they've had the PTI government, then a caretaker government, and now this new coalition government. But the entire time, they've maintained this commitment to economic reform. And so I think, the commitment is there regardless of who is in power. So the noise may be there, but I think the commitment exists, and the corporates will be able to generate dollar earnings growth. Bangladesh may be another country we're focused on, potentially having elections later this year or maybe early next year. Let's wait and see. But there seem to be enacting some of these more technocratic reforms, but we need to see who's going to be elected and who's going to be empowered until we get more comfort there.